My name is Kerianne Tobitsch. I'm a partner at the law firm Jones Day in our cybersecurity and emerging tech practice. And so today we're going to have a discussion on how organizations are deploying artificial intelligence to address cybersecurity and how that might be changing as more generative AI tools are becoming available. So you're probably already aware that our organizations are already using artificial intelligence in cybersecurity, and I really kind of put them together into three broad use cases. The first is the use of AI in planning and preparation. So an example of this is using AI in threat simulation, so emulating a cybersecurity incident to test how your organization will respond, or using AI for threat intelligence, so analyzing historical threat data and trying to predict future trends. The second broad use case is the use of AI in monitoring. So an example of this might be asset management, monitoring your endpoints to identify any unauthorized devices on your network, or using automated EDR tools. And then the third broad bucket is the use of AI tools in the actual incident response. So using AI tools to triage alerts or to classify IOCs, or even identify root cause. And so those are some of the ways that AI tools are used to help cybersecurity. We're also going to address how AI can harm cybersecurity. And this is a particular concern for generative AI. So an AI tool may only be trained to identify certain IOCs or behaviors and may miss new indicators. And so it raises the question of, is it possible for an organization to rely too much on AI in their cybersecurity practices? And what will that look like going forward? There's also this concern that AI could create new risks. So AI tools could create new, more realistic phishing incidents, or AI-generated malware could be more sophisticated than human-generated malware and making it harder to combat. So those are all the themes we're going to discuss today. Does AI harm cybersecurity more than it helps it? What are some of the strategies that organizations are using to address these risks? And how might those strategies differ by the type or size of the organization? So we have with us today a panel of CISOs from various organizations, both public and private. So I will start all the way at the end. We have Tim Lee. He's the CISO for the city of Los Angeles. And then in the middle, we have Dan Bowden. He's the global CISO for Marsh. And then here we have Stephanie Franklin-Thomas. She is the Senior Vice President and CISO of ABM Industries. So welcome, everybody. So why don't we start, if you just want to go down the line, maybe you want to start, Tim, and talk about how you're actually deploying AI to address your cybersecurity needs, and if you have any examples of how you might be using generative AI.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Tim Lee, City of Los Angeles CISO. A little bit background on City of Los Angeles. We are home to 4 million residents, 500,000 business, 48 million visitors annually, supported by 50,000 full-time employees and across 44 departments. So our cybersecurity domain include critical infrastructure protection, water and power, LAX Airport, Port of Los Angeles. And so we're handling vast amount of security data. And then with limited resources, we heavily rely on process automation, AI, ML use cases, security orchestration, these things, threat intelligence analysis. So these are all the use cases. So I'm looking forward to talking more with my colleagues on the panel today.
Hi, I'm Dan Bowden. I'm the global CISO for Marsh. Marsh is the largest threat advisory and insurance brokerage in the world. And that includes any kind of insurance brokerage, any threat or hazard your company or you might be weary of. We will do consulting and then, if appropriate, offer options for insurance. Along with that, we are the largest cyber insurance brokerage in the world as well. And so I work protecting Marsh proper, but also work with our Marsh Cyber Analytics Center, which we formed to help counsel our clients on how they can better position themselves. And along with the internal things similar to what Tim described, we're also constantly gathering more and more data to figure out, are there predictive models where any of you could bring your company to Marsh and say, what are the odds of, if we're a tech company, becoming the next SolarWinds, or if we're a retail company having a similar cyber instance, we're trying to work where we can help predict what the likelihood would be, but then also what measures you can do to reduce the likelihood and impact over time.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Franklin Thomas, and I am the Senior Vice President and CISO over at ABM Industries. And so a lot of folks are like, who's that? But you probably know us pretty well. We are in all the spaces and places that you go to every day. The company is 140,000 people strong. You will find us in airports, educational institutions, in facilities management. If you go to a concert, we're probably there. You go to a football game, we're probably there. White House briefing room. If you watch any of the politics stuff going on, we're in that room as well. So everywhere that you can think of, ABM is there. So when we think about cybersecurity, though, we think about it a little bit more broader, not always just around detection and cyber threats, but we try to incorporate it in a number of different spaces. But I will say that I've been listening to a number of the presentations today, and so in listening to them, it's very clear to me that cybersecurity and AI professionals like yourselves, we need to be lockstep, because you guys are developing a lot of really cool stuff out there, and I don't want to be the office of no. And that's what I feel like a lot of times I am. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic with the esteemed panel, and just share anything I can to get you guys talking to your CISOs in your organization, pushing that AI agenda forward.
Thank you so much. So I want to start by talking about some of the challenges that you might have faced in implementing AI tools. First, to start, have you experienced any challenges building trust around the use of AI, or issues with educating others on what you're using AI for or why?
At Marsh, it was really, weird that we start off on AI as the office of no, but why? What are you trying to do? Tell me what you want. And so what we ended up doing is deploying multiple internal POCs, telling everybody, okay, here's the policy. You don't put any of our data anywhere outside the network, but we do have a handful of POCs, proofs of concept going on, and also now within Marsh Tech, what we're calling a hackathon that will be starting up. So inviting everyone, show us anything cool you can do with this functionality. And it's important for us to understand how all of these work, as many as possible, because back to my introduction, our clients are coming to us and saying, should we use AI? Can you do a SWOT analysis for us in our business, in our sector versus our competitors? Is this an enabler, or is it a risk, or is it both? And how do we make it an enabler? And so you can't advise. AI is so there's so many things going on with it. You can't advise others unless you're doing it yourself. So we've kind of dove in, but we're keeping it very tightly. Try to tightly scope things. And have multiple tools going on right now. So we're still a little bit nervous, because even internally, we have data governance rules where our team in the UK can't upload documents that are subject to, GDPR, et cetera, or in Europe, and can't to GDPR. So where are you uploading that? What engine is it in? How are you doing it? So it's complicated. It's not easy just to test it.
Tim, do you see any differences in terms of building trust, being part of a public sector organization?
Yeah, well, that's very good questions. The key of the trust issue is not human to human; it's human to AI system that you're trying to deploy. The key reason of the trust issue to the AI system is because the black box nature of the AI, right? So you don't know what kind of decision and why they make that decision, even though that decision is correct sometimes. So there's a lot of challenge, a lot of questions you need to answer. So can you trust the decision made by the AI? Or who's going to take responsibility if something go wrong? And who's going to do the response based on the decision making? And can you trust the can AI system scan and discover its own vulnerability and patch it? And also, can you trust the scan result or self-audit report of the AI system? So those are the challenge. And that's another challenge keep getting the question from especially my peer and colleagues is like, they keep asking like, will AI system replace CISO or SOC analyst? And so based on my experience, I don't think so. I don't think so. At least not before I retire. So I try to make sure. So I asked ChatGPT similar question, and then looking at the response I got, I feel much better on my job security. But when we talk about shifting process automation to decision automation using AI, you cannot take the human out of the loop entirely, especially from the government perspective, especially in the public safety and life and death issue. You can't take the human entirely out of the loop. Maybe some of the loop, but not all the loop. So human is still center in the decision making. So that's the two challenges and question that I got.
So I'm interested in talking more about what you raised about the extent to which AI may replace the SOC analyst. I don't know if any of these other panelists have any thoughts on that.
Sure, I'll chime in on that one. So I don't think that's going to happen. Not only in my career, but even in the next career. And the reason for that is, we use AI from a threat perspective. When we're taking in alerts, very similar to what you described, when we're taking in alerts and kind of narrowing it down, the things that we need to follow up on. But the reality is the bad actor is changing. So what looks like a threat today may not look like a threat tomorrow. And something that looks benign today is going to be the threat of tomorrow. So while it's continuously learning, we really need to have that person that takes it and really says, what does this all mean? So that's one thing. And then the second thing that I found out, or I kind of realized this about cybersecurity professionals, and I don't know if there's many in the room, but we grew up and we think about things in zero trust. And so it's amazing to me how we want to put AI in and we say, trust it, it's going to find it. And yet we can't. We just physically can't. That's just not our nature. So I think in cyber, we're going to continue to have this evolution where the bad actors learn more stuff and they put more stuff into our world, and we're going to be constantly adapting and changing to that. So there's no way that a system or AI is going to be able to cover 100% of that.
And I think so. Is the thing that's been cool about it is how it can speed up the tasks of an analyst, where you think back 10 years, for those of us who were doing it then, it was painful and a lot of triaging and a lot of checking each other's work. And then sometimes it still wasn't right. Even my own team, if it was a really high risk kind of event they were trying to convict or acquit of, whether it was harm, they'd get mad because I'd still call Mandy at the end to check the work one more time, right? And because it was so complex, where now all the what do you call it? I don't want to say Googling, but what you used to call it, Googling, all the information, putting it together. You now have these sandboxing tools that just kind of burp out the initial report, and they're starting at the 60 or 70% mark of figuring out that triage, where before that may have taken them dozens of hours to get done.
In cybersecurity domain, instead of looking at from AI replacing human, I would rather look at the huge opportunity of AI and AI human teaming. It's not only at the individual organization level, it's at the industry and national level of networks of AI and human teaming. And we're sure that our adversaries are also using AI for enhancing their TTPs, and they are also doing the collaborative platform to AI and human teaming for the attacks. So we got to be ready for it.
You might be interested. I actually asked a chatbot whether AI tools will replace the SOC analyst, and they mentioned some things that you guys didn't. So they said that SOC analysts must interact with other team members and stakeholders, even outside of the organization, during an incident response. They said that emotional intelligence and human communication skills are crucial to these circumstances, and that AI lacks emotional intelligence to handle this. They also said AI lacks creative problem-solving skills. So, good news for the analyst. Okay, so I want to move on to what you see as the greatest risks of introducing AI for cybersecurity purposes. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the risk is, like I said, is because we don't know about how AI process and how AI make decision. And then the risk is if we implement the AI, who's going to take responsibility if something go wrong? And then also not only you can't rely on AI to make decision for you whether you want to block a network port in response to the malware detection. So usually the way that you want to manage that kind of risk is like three things. Like number one is your ongoing validating your models. Make sure you increase your accuracy and decrease the false positive and negatives. And second thing is you want to make sure the AIs, humans are still in the loop, right? So some of the decision making, you still need a human judgment on quarantine the endpoints or shut down the network segments in the response to the ransomware. And then third thing is you make it simple. To me, it's not every cybersecurity program require the AI ML solution. So you don't need to spend time and resource to create and design a AI model to monitor your SSL certificate expiration or its potential impact. And so AI is definitely going to be one of the tools you must have in your toolbox, but you have to use it wisely, just like you use for other tools.
I'll take the question in a different direction. So when I think about cybersecurity and just AI risk altogether, what comes to mind to me is the ability to move fast. So with a lot of AI technology, what happens is people are developing what they need to develop and they're moving to market or moving it out into the company really quickly. And a lot of times from the position that I sit, there's not a clear owner of who's doing what. There's a lot of shadow IT that's happening and people are just getting out there. And so typically I won't find out about really the real risk until it's already out there. And so that's problematic for me. That keeps me up at night because I'm always going to be on the defense. So and that's in any way that we deploy AI. I know when we deploy it within security, we have to think about the impacts to our customer, who are the people that are using it. And even in some of those cases, there's risk to doing that. So I'll use the example of the threats, right? When we use it to determine what threats we're going to follow up on, threats change, so we may miss something, right? We deployed it with our email solution, where it begins to learn your behavior on how you manage your email. Well, that has caused some risk in missing some pretty crucial emails out the door from high-level executives. So in each scenario, I feel like there's risk, but usually the risk is things have moved so fast and I don't know what it is. So it's hard for me to protect the organization with the unknowns.
So what are your strategies for trying to balance or even transfer the risks?
I call him.
I just say that's what we're paid for, right? Is to figure it out. I think that the key thing is understanding. It's like good old-fashioned risk management, right? The likelihood, the impact in a kind of I call it kind of a bare inherent risk state, right? If I don't know anything about this, what's the worst thing that could happen? And how likely is it to happen? And then what are the necessary, kind of countermeasures to reduce a likelihood or impact? And you have this residual risk model. And then after that, can I transfer it? How do I transfer it? Do we accept it? And sometimes there's internal transfers of risk, right? Back to who's accountable, right? Who's going to cover this? And it's difficult. I mean, sector to sector, it'll be difficult to imagine what can go wrong. How much cost is there to getting a number wrong? Depends on the sector, right? Or getting a word wrong on a report, or I was listening to some lawyers this morning. We were talking, putting a comma in the wrong place on a filing for a case, and having the judge throw the whole thing out because you put it missed a comma. And so that's the thing that at a business level, they have to decide what's the right transfer of risk, and is this something we can insure? Pay someone to help us insure against that risk, or is this something that now you're asking how much trust, back to, Tim's point, how much do you trust the AI to do this work versus the human? And another great nugget I heard this morning is, how do I keep the hallucinations or get good data? Say, well, only let the AI only feed the same data you would on the manual process that always gets the right answer. And I guess a lot of us, we make the mistake of, well, let's throw everything into the model. And then we wonder why the outcome was different than what the people were coming up with on their own yesterday. So it's a tough one. We could all, I'm sure, exchange pitfalls and opportunities for several hours on that.
What are your thoughts on building versus buying tools for the organizations that have the resources to do so?
I don't trust us to build it.
So that's an interesting question. I want to believe that I know we have the skill set to build, right? And I know we have the resources to build, but a lot of liability comes with that. And we are participating in a co-pilot, pilot, if you will, with Microsoft. And that's kind of a way that we're going to look at how we build it. There's a couple of use cases I have in my mind around cyber around identity access management that I would love to build because I haven't been able to find it in the market. But I do think that there's some risks that we have to consider if we're going to build it rather than buy it. I think our first inclination is to buy it, right? I mean, if we know of a company that's done it, they've done it well, then they can just reproduce it over here, and it goes back to that template. If there's a template for it, then why are we so different that we can't use that template? And that will just accelerate the pace at which we adopt it. But building it takes some time.
Oh, no. To me, I don't have preference on building or buying, whichever case makes sense to me and I can afford it. But most of the time, if as long as it enhances my security posture and defense measures, so usually we buy it. But if we need to customize the use case on specific needs, then we build it.
Is there a use for AI is there something you would like to use AI for that you haven't been able to yet, either because you're facing internal resistance or you just think the tools aren't there yet?
That's one project I'm working on right now. I call it precision security. Precision security is pretty straightforward. It just using AI to match the problem and solution in cybersecurity, right? It's just like a precision medicine. It match patient with the prevention measure and the treatment. So precision security is continuously assess the cybersecurity environment of the organization. So let's say, for instance, we have 44 departments. Each department have a very unique cybersecurity environment and threats. And so we continuously assess the unique environment for that organization. And we use the AI to match the prevention and response measure to address this. So that's the project I'm working on, very excited, and we see.
It was why I sat in and listened to your colleague this morning with the lawyers. Marsh, we have a lot of vendors like all of you, but then we're also, it feels like everybody's vendor. And so we're reviewing contracts on both sides. So contract review for the lawyers and the security teams. And my question is, can we get something to help us read these and help me form my problem statement, the session this morning? Because, this idea of restrictive covenants, and if you analyze a document, maybe 90% of it is good. And what's an AI, generative AI thing going to say? Well, it's a good document, right? It's going to summarize the good points and probably water down the one point, but that one point might be a restrictive covenant that would cause you to walk away from the whole deal. So I've learned now my problem statement is, can we get an AI model that will do contract review? But that's the one I want to see Marsh develop, is, where it'll break down each of those: limitation, liability, indemnification, blah, 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 and then punctuate a separate statement of yes or no on each of those. So that's what I want. My team wants it worse than I do, so.
So I actually have two things I would really like to find, and I haven't found it. I found bits and pieces of it, but I haven't really found it. The first one would be, because we are a company where everybody just about is our customer, I can't tell you how many security evaluations to fill out when we're going out for bid. I mean, it is crazy that the number of 200 questionnaires around security, around what we do. So I would love to create a bot, or I'd love to create an AI capability that they could ask their question, get the answer, and fill out their document, and just never have to call me.
We should team up on that.
I would love that.
We'll work together on that.
Now, I want to be able to control the responses, right? But I would like that. And the second thing that I would like is we have, because we have 140,000 people, we have a lot of issues with access management. Who gets access? They come in the first day, they have to get all this access, and then they have to sit around. We call it lapse days. They have to sit around for a while, and while we figure out what access they need so they can do their jobs. I would love an AI model that would, analyze everybody in that same role and say, day one, you need X, and just give it to you. And so there are some tools that allow something similar to that, but not with a high degree of accuracy. So I'd like to see that be improved.
So in keeping with our theme, it sounds like AI has helped you more in cybersecurity than it's harmed your efforts. Would that be fair?
I would agree with that statement.
Follow up on Stephanie. I also have a wish list. Yeah, I have a dream. As a CISO, one day, when a CISO or SOC team, when they log into security platform, any platform, the security platform they use, instead of bombarded by all these dashboards blinking, just one simple ChatGPT type of prompt. And all you need to do is ask what kind of information you need for that. So I'm very optimistic. It's going to happen before I retire. So that's the wish list.
So I want to move on to lessons learned. So I guess really in the last year on your AI journey within your organizations, what lessons have you learned in terms of implementation? What will you do better next time? Can you expand on that?
I have learned a number of lessons, not always good ones, right? So I'll talk about the email transformation that we did. So we decided that we were going to put AI on the back end, and so monitor how people are managing their email. And if you move something from a domain to junk, it'll continue to move that to junk, and then look for certain things where it would automatically not appear. So you wouldn't have all that spam. So we thought, it's going to be like for like with what we have. So no need to tell a whole lot of people this is happening, and we're just going to. You see, you already know where this is going, right? And yeah, so we did that, and quickly we found out that the AI wasn't as smart as we wanted it to be. And some things just went to junk and some things didn't go to junk, and it was difficult to find anything. And it really required it to learn the behavior. So on day one, it wasn't a good thing. Now that we're 18 months, 2 years in, it's very good. It has learned the way that I manage my email or how Tim might manage his email. It's learned, and it's been great, but it was very painful getting to that.
How long did it take?
I'd say 18 months before it was really good. We had to do a lot of whitelisting initially.
So it was a slow learner.
It was a slow learner, but you don't throw those all out with bathwater. You work with them, right? And so I think we're now in a good spot.
How about you guys?
No, it's a similar idea, though. Just what is it we think we're going to do, and what should we say about it? And I think we've fortunately a kind of organization where we do over communicate things. There's 15 emails about it. So when somebody says, "I didn't know this was happening," heaven help them, because someone will reply with the 15 attachments of all the emails that went out about it. So I think for us, though, it's just what are the expectations of the platform? That's probably where we've missed a little bit. Well, it doesn't do that. And so we've probably shorted things a little bit, and we could probably be a little bit further ahead. But the good news is we haven't, knock on wood somewhere, that we haven't made any big mistakes yet. So that's probably the upside.
From my perspective, as a cybersecurity professional, we are constantly doing balancing between drive for innovation and risk management, right? So that is true for AI. We just need to balance between AI for risk management and AI risk management. So that's just it. So we just need to strike the balance. It's not scary. It's just a high, but we just need to manage it.